Hello there, one and all, and thank you very much for tuning in to episode 482 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube as always, and we have several comments already on this Sunday evening, afternoon. First one goes to Keith, who says, "Good day from a rainy Edmonton." Unusually, it is not raining here in the south of England right now. Anyes says rainy in Chicago as well. Alex says, "Hello, Mr. P from Graz in Austria, watching your live stream while wearing Portrait of a Lady. What a treat." Ula is here as well. So is Tina, saying, "Another showcase. Somebody guard my wallet. I just ordered from Puente because of you." And Puente, we might be talking about in the next video. I don't think you need to particularly worry about your wallet for this one. And Mo says, "Good morning from Iowa, United States." You are all very, very, very welcome. Whether you're watching the live or you're watching the recording, please feel free to leave a comment, ask a question. But for the benefit of those of you watching live, the plan for today is that we're going to do this on the brief-ish side showcase video on these brands, Bibbi Parfum, and I think we're supposed to pronounce this Vyrao. It's a UK-based brand. I'm pretty sure it's Vyrao. And then we'll come back with a slightly longer episode where we'll try and tie up a few loose ends and talk about some perfumes that I've been meaning to talk about for a little while but haven't got round to. And then that is where we will draw the line under this particular season of Love at First Scent, because the channel will go into its annual summer shutdown. I will bid you a fond farewell, but let's talk about that when we get to the next episode. So, a kind of showcase for you. And I think we'll start with Bibbi. I don't intend to dwell on these, but I wanted to talk about these two brands because I think they are good case studies of a problem, I think, with a lot of new and newish brands in perfumery, putting aside what their perfumes are like. Although you can't fully aside what put aside what the perfumes are like, obviously, and we will come to that as well. But I don't know if you will agree, but there are almost every single new brand has to try really, really hard nowadays to push the whole gimmick button. Now, having a concept behind a brand is by no means a new thing. I mean, it's by no means a new thing. We for the last couple of decades or so, there have been brands that have been, themed around certain ideas. So either the common thread is travel, or the common thread is I don't know, pieces of music, or composers, or authors, or novels, or what have you. Personally, I've never understood what's wrong with just making a brand where your raison d'être is to create beautiful perfumes. Somebody called Frederick Malle did that in the year 2000, and he seemed to do all right. But that apparent need to present a particular type of concept, a sort of common thread, has just sort of gone into overdrive lately, and for me, it produces results that are quite ridiculous. I wonder what you think of all of this sort of thing that I'm talking about and alluding to here. Please feel free to comment. So, for instance, Bibbi, and I don't want to be. I don't mean to be rude in some of the things that I'm about to say and be sort of disparaging about how people have created their brands, and or unnecessarily disparaging, I suppose. I mean, I don't mind being disparaging if I think I need to be disparaging, but I don't want to just sort of be crassly or insensitively disparaging about the concepts that have caused people to do the things that they do. But consider Bibbi, and I wonder how many of you will know what I'm getting at here. Now, Bibbi is a brand that has been co-founded by somebody that may be familiar to you, a Swedish chap called Jan Ahlgren. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but I'm doing my best. A few years ago, he set up Wilhelm Perfumery, which was not a brand that I had tons of time for. A lot of the scents felt quite derivative, quite generic. It did extremely well. It was stocked in lots of high-profile places. Now apparently he's sold the brand, and he has founded Bibbi with his current wife called Stina, and I think Bibbi is a sort of alter ego of hers. And this is what they say on their website about how the ideas for the brand's perfumes come about. So I'm just going to read it. So it says, while practicing meditation, Bibbi can transport her consciousness to another dimension. In this dimension, she meets extraordinary characters with fascinating stories. Her most intense and profound connections with other beings occur there, always surrounded by a deep, Klein blue universe, as in the color. The Bibbi perfume collection is based on these tales and meetings in her meditative, subconscious state of mind. Christian has come up with the first comment in response to this. Oh no, is the comment. The fragrances are not merely scents. Of course, they're not merely scents, right? Why would they be merely scents? They are narratives, stories woven from the threads of her inner world. These imaginative unisex scents invite everyone to partake in the brand's unique journey into the subconscious. The unisex scents are her way of putting these findings into a narrative that invites everyone to be a part of her subconscious. And by the way, I'm still reading. By the way, Bibbi is Stina and Stina is Bibbi. Oh no, times two, says Alexandra. I meditate a lot, says Helen White, and don't meet people. Guess I'm doing it wrong. See, but this is what I mean when I say that I don't want to be insensitively or needlessly disparaging, because, you know, who am I to say that Stina has not attained a higher level of consciousness and that she doesn't meet people during her meditative states? But then I suppose there's another bit of me that thinks, okay, so one of the sort of consequences of being in these higher levels of consciousness and achieving these incredible meditative states and meeting these individuals is that you're prompted to make and sell perfumes. I mean, it kind of feels as though maybe that wouldn't have been the top priority for those beings that exist on the astral plane. I mean, do you kind of know what I'm saying? It's those things that maybe, you know, I'm English only by birth. I'm not English by ethnicity, I suppose, or by family heritage, but I'm also quite English in many ways by personality, and there's a sort of a particular kind of English suspicious gene that kind of kicks in, and I think, okay, so you have these trances and you have these states, and then when you emerge from them, you think, I must bottle this scent into a perfume that I will then sell at liberty and charge hundreds of pounds for, presumably. Edward says they're doing this because marketing tells us that a story well told sells. Now let's see the stories. The Hungry Gwei says a little self-awareness can be a dangerous thing. Not sure what you mean there. Alex says, lovely feel-good nonsense for me. Okay. Sharon says, yes, the attempt to form a brand around a gimmick is in overdrive. The brand Mind Games and its chess theme is an example. I'm not familiar with those. Gwyneth Paltrow, is that you? Says Santa Pelotuda. I don't think it's Gwyneth, but yeah, I know what you mean. The thing is, though, I'm willing to put all of that aside if I then smell the scents and I think, okay, fine, you can have your stories, you can have your Klein Blue, you can have your meditative trances, but thank you for giving us some interesting perfumes. Now, boy, can I not say that in relation to Bibbi. I have smelled nearly all of them. Unfortunately, I do not have a sample of the one that most people seem to be talking about. It's called Swimming Pool. Apparently, it's a kind of interesting green scent. I must try to seek it out. I don't have that one, and I think there's another one called something Boy. Let me just go and see if I can. I'm just clicking on the tablet here. Boy of June. I haven't smelled that one either. But apart from those two, I think I've pretty much tried all of them. I've tried 7, and I was looking at my notes. I've got pre-sprayed blotters from all of them because I kind of resprayed them again today, having smelt them for the first time a few weeks ago. And I thought, gosh, which ones could I share with you to sort of almost like kind of hold them up as one or two that may be interesting? And I really, really struggled. So I think what I might do is share a couple with you that maybe highlight why I have very little time for this brand. There was one, the only one that was kind of mildly interesting. Now, I noticed that somebody says that they're all by Jérôme Épinette. I have heard this as well, but I haven't seen it confirmed anywhere. I mean, certainly he was behind a lot of the Wilhelm ones as well, wasn't he? So I don't know if that's true or not. Oh gosh, we're getting the astral plane is making things shake quite a bit. I don't know why we're on uncertain footing today. Anyway, so there's one called The Other Room. This is what one of their bottles looks like, by the way. The rest I have as lab samples. So where's the other room? The other room, here we go. So little lab sample here. MB says, I'm actually wearing swimming pool today. Ah, interesting. It's very nice, if not groundbreaking. Others in the line are much less interesting. Woozy says, Jérôme Épinette, the go-to perfumer for brands that want boring but Vogue-worthy. Oh, that's an interesting term. Okay, so the other room comes with an interesting kind of story. And, you know, the stories that they've come up with for some of these are intriguing. They're sort of somewhat compelling. I think it actually makes very little difference whether they've come to the co-founder through the astral plane or not. And I think that's the other reason why I was questioning this whole shtick, because I thought, well, all of our ideas come to us in all sorts of different ways. I mean, you know, we're meant to believe that Mary Shelley dreamt up the plot for Frankenstein, but who knows where our ideas come from? So why make a thing of the fact that they come to you while you're meditating? I mean, I know why, because it makes the brand sound mysterious and interesting and intriguing, but you know what I mean when I say why. So where is the other room blurb? Okay, so this one, I think this is their Eyes Wide Shut perfume, right? So this says, the website blurb says, once I entered an exclusive masked ball, all formalities were suspended for a few hours. The rich and famous and infamous danced, flirted, and arranged assignations until dawn. Social ranking and gender rules were erased and forgotten. Everyone was in the present, disguised as whomever they wanted to be, and the desire of every guest was to get access to what they called the other room. I think that's an intriguing sort of brief for a perfume. I think you could spin something really, really quite interesting out of that. By the way, in case anybody's ever interested, the novella on which Eyes Wide Shut is based, I think, is it called Traumnovelle? Really, really superb. So 100 mils of the other room costs 245 euros. I would imagine that translates to 200 something pounds. Now, Christian says, are we sure she wasn't just watching Eyes Wide Shut? Well, I did have that idea. The story is already boring, says Eduardi. Yeah, see, I think, you know, as far as perfume stories go, you could spin something interesting out of that, couldn't you? With that kind of tension between anonymity and complete freedom, the tension between genders being sort of like hyper expressed, but also being blurred. That's kind of interesting. This isn't that interesting, though. Traumnovelle by Schnitzler. Thank you very much, Tina. Isn't it superb? Have you read it? It's really, really brilliant. And Christian is, yeah, you're right. Christian says it's weird. The stories don't seem to match the packaging. The blue seems, I know what you mean. I'm not sure that the blue, to me, is especially meditative. Anyway, what are we smelling in the other room? Well, to me, we're smelling a kind of cherry, cassis, rosy sort of scent. But what's interesting is that it's kind of very, very dusty and dirty, and there is something unsavory about it when it starts. There is something there is a kind of feel of a sort of warped reality to it, or of something being taken out of its usual context. I even put down that there was almost a sort of feel of a weird, strange, dusty sandalwood. It doesn't stay particularly interesting. So if I were to find my other room pre-sprayed blotter, yeah, it becomes much thinner, it becomes much more pedestrian, it becomes kind of sort of vaguely, generically woody, musky, fake sandalwoody, because I really, really don't think they've been particularly bothered about the dry downs here. But that's the only one that I think has got a sort of vaguely interesting start. There are a few that, if I go through my notes very, very quickly, there's one called Pistachio Game. And the main note that I put down here is the game that you have to find the pistachio, because I really couldn't find any. I just thought it was a very, very shrill kind of camphoraceous, acidic, eucalyptusy sort of scent. There's one called Iris Wallpaper, which, I mean, it's quite hard to make Iris be completely and entirely devoid of drama, but this perfume manages it somehow. It's a kind of really, really forgettable, lipsticky, inflected sort of iris. Oh, Radio Child. Let's do Radio Child, because that was really, really unpleasant. Let's go back to, again, the story of Radio Child is intriguing. I have no idea if this is true. Somebody will tell me if this is true or not. Website blurb again. This is a story about a child that lived in Vienna at the end of the 18th century. No one knew if it was a boy or a girl, and no one knew the parents. The child was an extraordinary piano player and attended private music lessons with Beethoven. Then one day, Beethoven went out of the room to get a cup of wine, and the child vanished into thin air. Every year on the date of the child's disappearance, all the radios in Vienna start to play Sonata Number 14, Moonlight. I mean, I have a feeling this is a kind of story that came to Bibbi on the astral plane, which is also fine. It's an interesting story. I'm not sure how that description there translates to a perfume. If it was Jeremy Pinette that did it, I'd love to know what he made of that as a kind of brief. But the perfume, where is Radio Child? Again, the note that I put to myself was, yeah, the reason the child disappeared was it probably ran a mile when it smelt this and thought it never wants to have anything to do with anybody ever again. It's just so insanely, almost sort of insultingly synthetic. It's a real kind of a grimace, a scowl in perfumes. It's got that really unpleasant kind of salty, musky, ersatz, pseudo jasmine thing happening. LR says, don't worry, that's not a true story. Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, I did kind of think that's a little bit far-fetched. Hungry Gway says, the cynic in me wonders how often the stories are made up after the scent rather than the scent being designed around the story. Oh, that happens all the time. That absolutely happens all the time. I mean, one of the most famous examples is Jean-Claude Ellen's Au Parfumeur au Thé Vert for Bulgari, where they then kind of retrofitted this story about how he went into Mariage Frère, and it happens all the time. But well, I shouldn't say so. I was going to say, but not all the time. It happens very frequently. But some of the time, the stories are genuine as well. And where's pre-sprayed Radio Child? Where are we? I mean, this was. It's just nasty. It's really nasty. And then there was one that made me laugh, because there was one called Ghost of Tom, and that's basically a woody amber. And I thought, okay, the note I've written to myself there is so clearly ghosts wear woody ambers. There's one called Santal Beauty, which is kind of, I think, trying to be a sort of dull imitation of Santal 33. And then the one that we've got here is Rainbow Rose, a really simplistic, uninvolving, dull, jammy, fruity kind of rose. I mean, I'm really sorry. I've got nothing positive to say about the brand. I expect it will do very well. Moving on to Vyrao. That is a UK-based brand. It's founded by somebody who I gather was a bit of a guru in the fashion world, a woman called Yasmin Sewell, and she founded it in 2021. Now, Vyrao are very different sorts of scents, and I think actually, for what they are, a lot of them work well. I mean, maybe not the kind of brand that I would naturally gravitate to. And that's partly why I've paired it with Bibbi here, because the point that I'm going to make about it in relation to Bibbi, and but that's similar to Bibbi, is that they're also trying really hard to push the gimmick, their gimmick being wellness and I suppose auras, and apparently their bottles some of their bottles contain crystals, and they're all about, you know, they when you go on their website, they sort of have this thing where they say, when you spray this particular one, this is the mantra that you kind of need to say to yourself, or the self-affirmation line that you need to say to yourself, because the perfume will help you achieve this. I just think, why? You know, perfume does not need to be an add-on to these other things. You know, I don't mind the wellness industry doing whatever it needs to do. I don't mind the self-help industry doing what it needs to do. You know, I may have issues with it personally, but whatever. But I don't see why they need to be conflated and linked with perfume. Perfumery should be able to stand on its own, as the greatest perfumes have. You know, Guerlain and Chanel and Frederic Malle and goodness knows Serge Lutens and L'Artisan Parfumeur and Les Indemodables are achieving what they're achieving, not because they have a kind of shtick or a kind of gimmick, but they're putting all of their efforts and their thought and their ideas into the juice. I wonder what they were manifesting when they thought of this, says Edward. Yes, exactly. Now, so I'll read you a little bit of the blurb about Vyrao. Founded in 2021 by Yasmin Sil, Vyrao is the world's first well-being brand to fuse energetic healing with master perfumery. I mean, okay, fine. Our collection of 7 unisex fragrances, as well as incense and scented candles, are catalysts for holistic well-being. Vyrao harnesses the power of nature to amplify energy, tapping into the science of scent and its potential to activate the parts of the brain where memories and emotions are processed. All perfumes do that. Lots of things do that. Foods do that. Looking at a painting does that. Our products are formulated from the finest organic, ethically sourced plant and flower extracts, drawing on neuroscientific principles, energetic practices, and perfume lore to bring something entirely new to the industry. Vyrao scents and their home fragrance iterations have been envisioned as a sublime smelling toolkit, each one designed to boost your mood and promote different positive emotions. Fine. I don't have 7. I think there are a few that I've missed. I've got the original Discovery set that was done of the first 5. All of those perfumes were made by none other than Lynn Harris. And Lynn Harris is a perfumer for whom I have a lot of time. She's got a very, very particular style, a very distinctive style. She has this ability to make her best compositions come across as very, very effortlessly naturalistic, very sort of limpid. And in the best ones of the 5 that I've smelled, that quality shines through. There are a couple that I think are a little bit more on the dull side. The one that I thought was interesting is called Witchy Woo, which is, I mean, I don't know what to make of the name, but never mind. Because, and I'll tell you why I thought it was interesting, because, well, for a start, it smells interesting, but also it felt a little bit like Lynn Harris was coming out of her comfort zone making it. So this is Witchy Woo in the sort of Discovery set size. There we are. Yeah, and if you've never smelt a Lynn Harris perfume, a good place to start would be her Perfumer H brand. Her perfumes never, ever, or hardly ever, let us say, you know, the sort of prevailing trend of the style is that they don't shout. They're very, very discreet. They have a kind of simplicity to them. I think a deceptive sort of simplicity. They're not simplistic, but they're not demanding. I think they're meant to stay very, very close to the wearer's skin. And as I say, they do have this kind of naturalistic feel to them. They're not overtly, unashamedly synthetic, even though I'm sure she uses plenty of synthetics in them. And Witchy Woo is interesting because you don't often in perfumery get a clear, distinct note of opoponax or myrrh, but you do in Witchy Woo. And I think it actually works rather well. Witchy Woo, if I can tell you what the brand says about it, Moroccan Orris Absolute casts the spell of Witchy Woo. Orris entwines thorny rose, nutmeg, cinnamon, and black pepper with grounding patchouli and wraps it in illuminating frankincense and opoponax with musk to seal. Wake up the powerful alliance of your courage and creativity. And apparently what we are saying is, sorry, what we're supposed to say is we're supposed to spray it and say, woo our magic. I will leave that one with you. Um, Sandra says, Witchy Woo is just so peppery and woody. I just cannot see when to wear this. Thanks for bringing up pepper. A lot of these are peppery. And as I was smelling them, I also thought to myself, okay, you need to come up with a slightly different way to convey energy and vitality rather than just constantly resorting to pepper. But okay, maybe maybe the founder particularly likes pepper. But Witchy Woo I thought was interesting. Let's go to the pre-sprayed witchy. Imagine saying that you're wearing Witchy Woo. So this is the pre-sprayed one. Yeah, and it's very Lynn Harris, quite elegant in that kind of Lynn Harris way. If you ever met Lynn Harris, I mean, I've only ever seen her wearing, you know, sort of quite sort of neutral toned, minimalist clothing. She probably would have been a very interesting fashion designer if she decided to go that way. You know, I don't particularly get an iris note. I don't particularly get a nutmeg note, but I get something kind of spicy-ish with black pepper and myrrh. But it's interesting. Going through the list, there's one called Georgette, which was from the original lineup. And that was all right as well. That again had a kind of peppery opening that was sort of contrasted with green notes. The two that I thought were particularly weak were Free 00. I don't know whether that's Free 00, Free 00, because that was actually Lynn Harris in uncharacteristically sort of overly synthetic mode, and that the sort of lilies and the jasmine there just didn't convince me. And I sort of felt kind of the same about the one called I Am Verdant, which was a kind of, I think, oversimplistic sort of juniper and pepper thing. Penhaligon's did that sort of thing much better with Juniper Sling. Magnetic 70 is a fairly predictable but nicely done, you know, completely inoffensive sort of cedar and angelica seed scent. And then I suppose we should also smell this one, the latest one, because it's won an award. This is called Sun Rae, Rae, R-A-E, of course, and this was made by Maeve McCurtain. It's all right. It's a nicely done cologne type scent. I think the dry down is on the disappointing side. I think it did well to win an award. It doesn't really particularly have, you know, sort of award-winning scent written all over it, but it's fine. I would, you know, if I had to give one of these brands the thumbs up and one the thumbs down, there is no question that I would give Vyrao the thumbs up, because at least you detect a sort of sincerity in the compositions. At least you can see that somebody has put the elements together with some sort of thought. They're following a particular kind of aesthetic. They don't come across as overly cynical. You know, putting aside all of the well-being stuff, I'm just talking about them as perfumes. That they are generally pleasant, you know, apart from maybe those sort of two that I thought were a bit less than pleasant. Yeah, and the Sun Rae, the citrus note at the top is totally convincing. It's really kind of yellow and bright and lemony and happy and really does feel like sun rays. You know, I wasn't kind of reacting with this sort of positivity to any of the ones from Bibbi, not any of them. And it'll tick a box for some people, I think. It'll meet a certain sort of need. What else did I say about Sun Rae? Yeah, basically I just wrote in my notebook that it's approachable. What's the dry down like though? Because that was a little bit of a shame, because I thought, well, could have made the dry down a bit more interesting. It's just quite indistinctive. It doesn't have much of a personality, or certainly not enough of a personality for something calling itself Sun Rae. But, you know, if you found yourself in a shop, and I think Vyrao are at liberty as well, if you found yourself at liberty or a shop that stocks both these two, then feel free to walk straight past the Bibbi and go for the Vyrao. Although, having said all of that, I do want to smell swimming pool just to kind of find out what all the fuss is about. So there we are. Final showcase of the season. We will give the old YouTube a 2-minute break and come back with a longer video where we'll try to get through as many different things. I'm kind of looking at the array that I've got here. We'll do our best, but anyway, I should also say, if you've enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to find out how you can support my work, click. You should be able to see a link to my Ko-fi page in the video description below. Thank you very, very much for watching. If you're sticking around for the next live, I will see you in a few minutes. Bye now.